Every morning somewhere, a hen lays an egg. You crack it into a pan. You've done this hundreds of times without a second thought. It feels as automatic as sunrise. But sunrise is exactly the problem. Go outside right now. Look for a sparrow's nest, a robin's, a finch's. Search for eggs. You won't find any. Not today. Not most days of the year. Every wild bird on this planet lays on a strict seasonal window. A few weeks in spring, then silence for months. Except one bird. What if that one exception wasn't an accident of nature at all? What if the chicken standing in a backyard right now isn't really the same kind of creature as a sparrow, but something closer to the product of an unfinished experiment, one that started 10,000 years ago and never got switched off? And what if the exact same mechanism used to break that bird's internal clock is quietly working on yours too, right now? Tonight, in ways you've never once connected to a chicken? Stick with this because the last part changes how you think about your own sleep. Start with the wild bird. To understand what happened to the chicken, you need to understand the system that was dismantled to create it. Every wild bird carries something close to an internal calendar, and that calendar runs entirely on light. As winter fades and days stretch longer, extra sunlight hits the eye. A signal fires toward the brain. The brain wakes a gland, that gland wakes another, a hormone floods the bloodstream, and the ovaries, dormant for months, switch on. Scientists have a name for this: photoperiodism, the ability of a living thing to measure day length and respond biologically. It's one of the oldest survival systems alive, and it exists because spring isn't just pleasant. It's the only season with enough food and warmth for eggs to survive at all. Nothing about this is random. It's the result of millions of years of birds who gambled on the wrong season and vanished. Then, roughly 10,000 years ago, that ancient calculation got interrupted. Somewhere in the forests of Southeast Asia, early humans caught a small, aggressive wild bird called the red jungle fowl, the direct ancestor of every chicken alive today. In the wild, she laid 10 to 15 eggs a year only during the breeding season, only when the daylight was right, exactly like every other bird on Earth. But humans didn't want 15 eggs a year, they wanted more. So they started choosing. A hen who laid slightly more than average was kept. One who laid less was replaced. Generation after generation, without anyone understanding a single gene, the humans running this quiet selection kept favoring the birds whose internal clocks were the least accurate, the ones just a little less obedient to the season. Here's where it gets strange. By the time of the Roman Empire, the agricultural writer Columella was documenting hens capable of laying around 300 eggs a year. 300 from an ancestor built for 15. A 20-fold increase, achieved without a single lesson taught to the bird. It wasn't achieved by teaching her anything. It was achieved by slowly, invisibly disabling the part of her brain that once told her when to stop. Let that sit for a second. A wild bird lays in spring because her brain correctly reads the light. A modern hen lays constantly because her brain has almost entirely stopped listening to it. The switch wasn't upgraded. It was broken on purpose. One generation at a time. And the mechanism wasn't only about calendars. Wild hens don't just respond to the season, they respond to what's in front of them. Researchers studying wild-type hens found something almost unsettling. Quietly remove an egg from the nest the instant she lays it, and she keeps producing. Well past what her body should allow. Not because the season changed, because the nest, from her point of view, never once looked full. Early farmers never understood the mechanism. They just knew that a nest emptied every morning kept producing, and without meaning to, they'd found the one loophole in her biology with no natural exit built in. Centuries later, geneticists found the physical scar left behind by all of it. Comparing the genome of the domestic chicken against her wild ancestor, scientists identified a gene called TSHR, the thyroid-stimulating hormone receptor, carrying a mutation present in nearly every domestic bird on the planet and almost absent in wild ones. TSHR doesn't build eggs. It runs the seasonal clock itself, the exact circuit that reads daylight and decides whether it's time to breed or time to wait. In the domestic chicken, that mutation doesn't weaken the clock. It jams it in the on position permanently. Sit with that for a second. One mutation, hiding inside a bird humans have kept for 10,000 years, quietly overriding an instinct older than the species itself. If a single broken gene can erase millions of years of programming, how thin is the line separating wild from domestic in any creature, including the ones we've never bred at all? But the break was never total. And this is the detail that should unsettle you. Picture a commercial egg barn at 3 in the morning, deep in winter. Outside, total darkness. Inside, fluorescent light floods every corner, and hens are awake, eating, laying, behaving as if it's noon in June. Farms run those lights 14 to 16 hours a day on purpose, because even now, the old wiring hasn't disappeared. It's just buried. Leave a modern hen in genuine darkness long enough, and her laying slows. The instinct is still down there, faint but alive. which is exactly why farms stopped trusting the real sun and built a fake one instead. The accelerator is jammed, the brake still faintly works. That's the whole reason the lights stay on. Now something even stranger. Birds don't only sense light through their eyes. Buried inside a bird's skull are photoreceptors, light-sensitive cells sitting directly in brain tissue, capable of detecting sunlight as it passes through thin bone. Researchers confirmed this decades ago by blinding birds completely and exposing only their heads to light. Their reproductive systems activated anyway. The eyes were irrelevant. The brain itself was watching the sky, with or without them. A bird's sense of season doesn't live behind its eyes. It lives inside the skull, always listening. And whatever that skull is listening for comes at a cost most people never think about. Producing a single egg takes roughly a full day, start to finish, a yolk that spends over a week maturing, then a rapid wrap of albumin and membrane, then a calcified shell that alone takes most of a day to harden. That calcium isn't pulled from food in real time. It's pulled directly from the hen's own skeleton. A wild jungle fowl gets months between clutches to rebuild what she loses. A modern hen doing this almost every single day of the year gets no such window. She isn't just producing more eggs, she's mining her own bones to do it. There's a second, quieter cost too, one bred just as deliberately: broodiness. The instinct to sit on eggs and raise them once defined this entire species' relationship to motherhood. But a broody hen stops laying. So farmers, generation after generation, kept culling the birds who wanted to sit and hatch, and kept breeding forward the ones who simply walked away. In many modern egg breeds, that maternal drive has been reduced to almost nothing. She lays and leaves and lays again. Not from indifference, but because the instinct that once whispered stop, stay, protect has been engineered into near silence. This is where the story stops being about chickens. Because for most of human history, food obeyed the same seasonal law birds still follow. Eggs arrived in spring. Diets shifted with the cold. Human metabolism, sleep, even hormone patterns once tracked the changing length of day. And researchers studying populations still living close to natural light cycles can measure that shift even now, a body quietly rising and falling with the seasons the way it was built to. Then the hen stopped being seasonal, and eggs became a food available every single day of the year. Then electric light arrived, and the seasons themselves began disappearing. Not just for chickens, for us. And here's what makes the chicken story even stranger once you compare it to almost any other domesticated animal. Dogs still sleep in the same fractured, watchful rhythm as wolves. Cows still ruminate the way their wild ancestors did long before anyone built a barn. Most domesticated species kept the deep rhythms of their wild lineage intact even as their bodies changed completely. But the modern hen's internal clock isn't bent. It's shattered, not through one act of deliberate engineering, but through thousands of years of humans rewarding, one generation at a time, whichever bird had forgotten how to stop first. Nobody designed that outcome on purpose. It was selected into existence, one stolen egg at a time. Think about the last time you actually sat in real darkness. Not sleep, darkness. Deep in your brain sits a gland called the pineal gland, and its job is simple. The instant true dark falls, it releases melatonin, a signal telling your body to cool down, slow down, begin repairing itself for the night. But a phone screen glowing at midnight reads to that gland almost like daylight. Melatonin stalls. Your body loses its grip on the difference between December and June, between night and noon. The hen was placed under artificial light so she'd never feel winter arrive. You are placed under artificial light so you never fully feel the night arrive either. She lays and lays because the light insists she must. You stay up and stay up because the glow insists that you can. There's even a clinical name for what happens when the human body loses that seasonal signal entirely. Seasonal affective disorder, a well-documented drop in mood, energy, and sleep quality during darker months, affecting hundreds of millions of people. Many researchers believe it's the body still trying to slow down the way it was built to, and finding no darkness left anywhere to slow down into. There's a quieter version of this most people never name at all. Not a diagnosis, just a drift. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time your body decided when a day was finished instead of a notification, a deadline, or a glowing rectangle deciding it for you? The wild bird still gets to answer that question every single evening. Most of us haven't been asked it in years. Now zoom out. 10,000 years ago, humans took a wild bird whose entire biology answered to the sky and slowly, patiently taught her to answer to nothing at all. Nobody redesigned her in a single moment. They simply kept rewarding, generation after generation. Whichever version of her had forgotten how to stop, until forgetting became the default, and daylight stopped meaning anything to her at all. And in that same span of time, without any breeding program, without touching a single gene, humans quietly did something eerily similar to themselves. Nobody selected the darkness out of us. We simply kept switching more lights on, fire, then gas lamps, then filament bulbs, then screens that never fully go dark. 1 century at a time, until most of us have never once experienced a night the way our ancestors did. Total, uninterrupted, absolute. So ask yourself the question this video was really building toward. When was the last time you let a season, not a schedule, decide your pace? When was the last time your evenings were actually fully dark? The hen can't answer that anymore. That choice was bred out of her, deliberately, until there was nothing left to choose. You still have yours. The egg in your pan tomorrow morning didn't come for free. It came from a creature that lost its sense of enough. The only question left is whether, somewhere under all of this artificial light, you're already losing yours too, and simply haven't noticed it's gone.